Hello Leafs Nation, I'm Rick Scarborough and you're watching Blue and White Weekly, where we bring you weekly updates on the Leafs and the hockey world at large. I just escaped from a maximum security stockade to the Los Angeles Underground, but that's not what's important. What's important is we have a brand new week of Maple Leafs hockey to talk about, so let's get into the news. A few housekeeping items before we begin. Firstly, apologies for the delay on this video, but our studio has been without power since Saturday afternoon, and we just got it back last night. Shout out to the radio in my car for giving me the ability to listen to Saturday and Sunday's games. And before we talk hockey, we want to wish good luck to the Toronto Blue Jays as they kicked off their season last week. Let's go Blue Jays and good luck. You're going to need it. And before we get into the games of the week, let's take a look at some news from around the hockey world. The Western Hockey League has announced an expansion franchise coming to Chilliwack, BC, as will hit the ice in the 2026-27 season. At the time of this recording, Alex Ovechkin is just 5 goals away from breaking Wayne Gretzky's all-time goals record, which is the point at which I said I'd start watching every Caps game until he broke it, so I'm about to get real familiar with the Washington roster. And earlier this week, Sidney Crosby became the first player in NHL history to have 20 point-per-game seasons under his belt, reminding us all that he and Ovechkin are both always going to be dominant in their own ways. I'm going to cry when they retire. And now let's get into the games of the week. Things kicked off on Tuesday with a game at home against the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers started the game off with a goal 8 minutes in, courtesy of Ryan Poehling, and immediately Leafs fans around the world thought this game would end up with the boys getting blown out at home by a bottom 8 team. But sometimes we as Leafs fans need to relax and trust the process a little, because almost immediately after, John Tavares and Willie Nylander put goals on the board to round out the period with the Leafs on top. And then things blew up in the second as Bobby McMahon scores less than 2 minutes in. Tavares and Nylander both pick up their second goals of the game, and Kalle Järnkrok springs David Kampf on a long breakaway for his 5th of the season. How do you let David Kampf get a breakaway? What happened there? Sean Couturier would give Philly signs of life before the end of the second, but an impressive puck battle from Max Domi on the breakaway in the third seals the deal as the Leafs throw up a touchdown for a big 7-2 win on home ice. And if you go check out the box score of this game, you'll see that the Leafs well and truly dominated up and down the roster, with JT and Willie each getting 4 points, and every other forward having at least 1 point, except for Nick Robertson and Scott Laughton, who, despite trying his hardest, could not register even a shot against his old team. And after a performance like that and some comments made post-game, John Tortorella was relieved of his duties as head coach of the Philadelphia Flyers on Thursday. Speaking of Thursday, we'll fast forward there now as the Leafs head to San Jose to kick off the California road trip against the Sharks. Last time these teams met, the last place Sharks defeated Toronto in the shootout. But that's not going to happen again, right? Right? The Sharks open up with a ton of offensive pressure and open up the scoring with a Tyler Toffoli goal assisted by Timothy Liljegren. Because of course it was. Speaking of, quick side note about Lily. First of all, I miss him, and he was great in this game. But he changes his name pronunciation as much as I change underwear, which is about, 3 times in the last month. First he was Timothy Liljegren, then it was Timothé Liljegren, and now he's Timothy Liljegren. I'm not complaining, it's his name and we should pronounce it however he wants us to, but I just thought it was worth pointing out. It's a strange phenomenon. Nylander answers back to Toffoli's opener, but Colin Graf would make it 2-1 Sharks before the end of the first. The teams would then trade blows in the second, including Scott Laughton's first as a Leaf, but the period would wrap up 4-3, and the Sharks are still in the lead. Toffoli would get his second of the game to open up the third and make it 5-3, but Tavares and Nylander were saying their names a lot together, would both score in the last minute to force overtime. And that's got to be it, right? Toronto's buzzing, they've got the momentum, the Sharks' confidence is at an all-time low, and the Leafs, on paper, are the better team. This has got to go in Toronto's favor, right? Right? No. Sharks win in the shootout. Moving on to happier days, the road trip continues in the City of Angels as the Leafs land in LA for a Saturday night battle with the Kings. Roster controversy blew Craig Berube's way as he healthy scratched Nick Robertson in his homecoming game. Robertson is a native of Pasadena, California, and grew up going to Kings games. Berube cited Robertson's poor play in San Jose as reason for the scratch. Right off the bat, 3 minutes in, Jeff Malott and Brandon Carlo dropped the gloves. After the game, Carlo was asked if he's aware his opponent's brother is UFC welterweight Mike Malott. Carlo said, quote, Not at all, but knowing that information, I'm thankful I'm not knocked out right now. Alex Laferriere opened up the scoring 2 minutes into the second to give the Kings the lead, and I can't be the only one that mistakes him for Alexis Lafreniere when I read their names side by side. The Leafs waited until the third to turn up the heat, however, as Matthews pots a shorthander to tie it, and then Tavares gets not just a power play goal, but the empty netter to give the Leafs the 3-1 win. But there's no time to celebrate it, as the Leafs are off to Anaheim the very next night. Anaheim is the last remaining city the Leafs have not played in this season, and fans at the Honda Center had to wait until the last minute of the first for the game's first goal, when Max Domi put some moves on in the slot and gave the Leafs the lead. Marner would add to that lead in the second, but Leo Carlsson and Sam Colangelo answer back for the Ducks to tie it up. So it's up to Steven Lorentz, I guess, to play the hero and give the Leafs the 3-2 win. So, on a 3-game California road trip, the Leafs pick up 5 out of 6 possible points and have built themselves a 3-point lead on Tampa and Florida in the Atlantic Division standings, though both the Lightning and Panthers hold a game in hand. Looking ahead in the week, a bit of a lighter schedule, but a no less important one, as the Florida Panthers come to town on Wednesday to continue the battle for the Atlantic title. Then there's nothing until Saturday when the Columbus Blue Jackets visit. We'll have all those games for you next week, plus so much more, but for now, thank you very much for watching Leafs Nation. Be sure to like and subscribe. And remember, go Leafs, go. We'll see you next week.